Hey everybody, I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold here with our weekly lecture series. Tonight's lecture is titled Grischuk in Early Time Trouble. And that's because Alexander Grischuk, who's the person we're talking about, the subject, he gets into time trouble early in games because he plays really slowly and takes huge amounts of time. And he's in time trouble a lot, just like American player Ray Robson. Both get into time trouble a lot. Sorry, I have a sore throat, and so I'm taking a cough drop. So hopefully you can still understand me. And my voice, I don't lose my voice. Anyway, I complain a lot when I do lectures about the Wikipedia articles being very short, and this is the worst one. First, I want to thank our sponsor, though, Mike Puddinhead. Thanks for sponsoring the lecture. Mike actually won a poker tournament. He won a bracelet at the World Series of Poker, the Mystery Millions. So congratulations to Mike. Thanks for sponsoring the lecture. They have Grischuk's rating from 2014, which means his Wikipedia page needs to be updated. They don't talk about stuff that happened in the last 10 years. In 2006, he won the World Blitz Championship. So it mentions that. His wife is women's grandmaster Natalia Zhukova from Ukraine. So there you go. Okay, Grischuk has been one of the top players in Soviet Russia for many years. He's been the number one player in Russia. He's older now, and also, as Mr. Puddinhead must know, Grischuk plays a lot of poker. You could see videos on the internet of Grischuk playing poker in bigger events. Okay, let me find where I'm supposed to be. Here. No, that's not right. Supposed to be here. Here we go. Okay, and then F11. Okay, so the first game we're going to look at where Grischuk was in time trouble early is Vugar Gashimov versus Alexander Grischuk at the World Team Championship in 2010. I was actually at the World Team Championship in 2011 in China, but this was the year before. Grischuk has the black pieces. Sorry, we have a visitor. Hey, Mike.
Hello.
I already started, but I didn't think you were going to show. But we haven't looked at any chess yet. So you're good. Okay, so the first game we're going to look at, again, is Vugar Gashimov versus Alexander Grischuk at the World Team Championship in 2010. They played a Sicilian Najdorf. Bishop g5, the old main move. f4. And now Grischuk played a line that used to be very popular at the top level. Not so much nowadays. The poison pawn variation. Queen b6, unpinning the knight on f6 and threatening the pawn on b2. Usually white sacrifices the pawn. Gashimov plays queen d3, can also play queen d2. Then after the pawn is captured, the knight's defended by the queen, so white can play rook b1. And we get this position where black is a pawn ahead, but white has a big lead in development. f5, putting pressure on the e6 pawn. Black doesn't want to play e5 because once he loses his knight on f6, he's giving away d5 to the white knight. So black plays bishop e7, They trade pawns on e6. Bishop e2. White develops, prepares to castle. Queen a5. Bishop back to d2, putting tremendous pressure on the black queen. Queen c7 and g4. So now white wants to play g5 and ask questions of the black knight on f6. So black plays h6 so that g5 isn't so strong anymore, because we can just take it. Queen h3. Now black plays a very unusual move, but now white's threatening to play g5. You can't take the pawn because of the pin. So black plays rook h7. Very strange move. The knight is defending the rook, so now g5 just loses a pawn. Rook f1 instead of castling. White thought his king shouldn't be on g1 because it's open on the diagonal here. For example, if white castles, black could play queen c5, and white would have to play a defensive move. So white played rook f1 instead. So nobody's castling. Knight c6, attacking the knight on d4. Knight d4, queen c6. Knight c6, queen c6, putting pressure on the e4 pawn. e5 takes. And you can imagine probably Grischuk is already getting into time trouble now. Bishop d3 attacking the rook. e4. Knight takes e4, piece sacrifice. Knight takes e4, queen h5 check. And the black king can't go to the f file, can't play g6 because of queen g6 check. So black's king has to go for a walk. King to d7. Rook d1, putting pressure on the black king. Rook back to h8. The knight was pinned. So now the rook moves away so the knight can move. Bishop f4. Now white has all kinds of threats. Bishop takes knight check. Discovered check. Bishop b5 check. And black can't play king c7 to get his king out of there because the bishop's on f4. With so many arrows, black's position is treacherous. Bishop b4 check. c3. Knight takes c3. Now, if we play bishop e4 check or bishop b5 check, knight takes rook is check for black. For example, bishop b5, bishop e4, knight takes is check. So we don't have time to take the queen on c6. So white played bishop d2, queen d5. Black wants to trade queens since black is up a piece. Rook f7 check. King goes for a walk, king c6. Grischuk is in really bad time trouble now, but his king has to go to safety somehow. Rook c1, king b6, running away. Check. King only has one square, king a5. The queens are still attacking each other, but black keeps being in check. a3 attacking the bishop. King a4, that's the only winning move. That unpins the queen. So black is threatening queen takes bishop on d3. And if white trades queens, black takes back with check, and black is attacking the bishop on e3. So black remains a piece ahead. Takes. Queen a5 check. King b3. This is good when you play on the queen side with your king. King b6, king a5, king a4, king b3. Because it's right next to the clock. Usually the clock is on the right side of the board. So if you're in time trouble, moving next to the clock saves you valuable seconds. Not sure if that was a joke or not. It's half serious. Rook takes c3 check. Queen takes. Bishop d2. Now white's down a rook. b6 attacking the queen. Black wants to trade queens because black's up a rook. Queen e5 check. Bishop e7, sacrificing the bishop to connect the rooks so the rooks can come into the center. Surprisingly, black's king is safe on white's side of the board. King a2. Obviously, not king b2 because bishop c3 check. Oh, bishop c3 check is illegal. Well, then he could have played king b2. King a2 safer, stopping illegal checks. Rook f2, king b1. And black turned his king into a queen by promoting his king. Not sure if that's a promotion or not. Queen f3, rook c8. Now, in this position, strangely enough, black's king is an attacking piece. Black is threatening rook c1 checkmate. If you can believe that's checkmate. It is. So queen b3 check, queen b2. He has to trade. And now Grischuk is no longer in time trouble because they made it to move 40. This is move 41. So Gashimov resigned. So in time trouble, Grischuk moved his king up to the queen's side, and eventually his king was safe. That's a famous game that was played 15 years ago. R.I.P. to Gashimov. Okay, the next game, Grischuk has white against Laurent Fressinet. This was played in 2000, 25 years ago, when Grischuk was a much younger man. Also, so was I. Most of you at home weren't born yet. This was at the Young Masters. So these players are typically teenagers. We see another Sicilian, another Najdorf. This time, Grischuk has the white pieces. Grischuk plays e4 and d4, which he did this game, but he'll play d4 on move 1 also, as you'll see later in the lecture. f3, the English attack. e5, bishop e6, bishop e3. This is all the main line. g4, the point of f3. b5, g5, knight h5. And typically, before white plays g4, g5, white plays queen d2 in castles, and black plays bishop e7 in castles. Here, Grischuk decides just to play g4, g5 right away. Queen d2, bishop e7, castles, knight b6, controlling the d5 square. And the knight wants to hop in on c4. Knight d5, takes. Now white plays knight a5, which is typical in this variation. White tries to play knight c6 at some point. King b1, always play king b1. f6, never play f6. Now you know the result of the game because black played f6. On the other hand, white played f3. So maybe you don't know the result of the game. G takes f, rook takes, knight c6. White has a pass pawn of the 6th rank. Is it weak or is it going to promote? Queen c7. Black hopes it's weak. Bishop g5. They trade. Queen a5, keeping the rook tied down to the pawn, and the queen controls the c7 square. Queen e8, attacking the pawn. c7. Knight f4. c4, which is another typical idea for white in this variation. Try to win the black pawns on the queen side. b4, keeping the bishop on f1 blocked in by his own pawn. c5, white sacrifices a pawn so the bishop can get to c4. d5, black doesn't take the pawn, but instead gets a big center and stops bishop c4. So now Grischuk is clearly in time trouble in this position. White, I was going to say white is up a pawn, but white's actually not up a pawn. I forgot that he hadn't taken this pawn on b4. Materials equal. White has a passed pawn on the 7th rank. Can it promote? Bishop c4 anyway. A great move in time trouble, even though black tried to prevent bishop c4. He ended up playing queen f7, defending his pawn. If he takes, then white plays rook to d8. And the queen is pinned. There's no defense. So queen f7 was played. c6, attacking the pawn again. Rook d6, defending the pawn. Queen takes a6. Now if you take the queen, I promote to a queen with check and then take the rook. A brilliant move from Grischuk, who has very little time on his clock. Queen e8, queen b7. We can't take the bishop because our rook is hanging on d6. Queen takes c6, queen takes. Rook takes d5. If knight takes d5, bishop takes wins all of black's pieces. So he played rook takes c4, rook d8 check, and then rook c1 is the finishing move. Now, white's winning a very long, complicated endgame after rook takes, because white's up in exchange. But rook c1 is even stronger. When you see a good move, look for a better one. Now black is toast. This pawn's going to end up becoming a queen at some point. If you take the pawn, I take with check, and then I win the other rook. So after rook c1, Grischuk no longer in time trouble, and the game is decided. Fressinet resigned. If you're going to get in time trouble as much as Grischuk, you have to have good calculation skills. Grischuk, a very good blitz player, as you can see from his Wikipedia article, he won the World Blitz Championship years ago. Okay, next game, Grischuk is white again against Anton Filippov from the Olympiad in 2014. This time, Grischuk plays d4. And they play a Bogo Indian. This is all theory. Okay, now we're out of prep. Grischuk doesn't take the pawn on d4 because he wants to keep his pawn on e5 protected. So he plays rook e1, saving the pawn on e5. Queen b6, defending the d4 pawn. Bishop f4, developing and defending the pawn again. Black's up a pawn, but black has terrible pieces on the back rank that can't move. Plus, the extra pawn's a doubled pawn, so it doesn't matter very much. a5, getting space on the queen side. Rook to d1. Now, white's threatening to take on d4, and if black takes twice, the queen is in trouble after bishop h7 check. So, instead of taking back the pawn and losing his e5 pawn, Grischuk developed his rooks to the center and put his bishop in the center, and now he's ready to win his pawn back. Knight c5. Knight takes, queen takes. Queen e2, unpinning the c-pawn. h4. White has a big attack brewing on the king side with all his pieces pointing that direction. Black's pieces are mainly on the queen side. The king is not so well defended. King f8, running away. Rook c1, lining up with the black queen. Queen b6, takes, takes. Finally, black can get the bishop out. Knight g5, piece sacrifice. And now Grischuk is in serious time trouble. In this position, he had less than 10 minutes on his clock because he was calculating knight g5. Takes, queen h5. Now we're threatening queen h8 checkmate. King e8, running away, setting up for the next game. e6, threatening queen takes f7 mate. Bishop e6, rook e6. Takes on f4. Bishop f5. That stops the king from moving here because of the winning discovered checks. So now white is threatening queen h8 check, king d7, rook takes c6, checkmate. Let me show you that checkmate. It's beautiful. Let's say black plays a4. Terrible. Queen check. Bishop f8's illegal. Can't. And then rook takes knight. Checkmate. A beautiful checkmate. Okay, so Filippov plays g6. Grischuk takes that with the rook. Now if you take the rook, queen takes check, king f8, bishop e6, threatening queen f7 mate and queen g8 mate. You can stop one, but you can't stop them both. So he played queen c7, rook e1, threatening rook g8 checkmate, rook e1 pins the bishop, takes, queen h8 check, king f7 is the only legal move, and now you at home can figure it out. Bishop e6 checkmate. A crisscross checkmate. A beautiful game from Grischuk. Grischuk was still in time trouble in the final position. That's why his opponent played till mate, hoping something good would happen on the clock, instead of resigning one move before mate. Even here you could resign. But when Grischuk has seconds on the clock, people aren't apt to resign. A really nice checkmate. Okay, last but not least, Cheparinov versus Grischuk. This was played in Baku in 2008. Yeah, 2008. It's a small 8. Okay, they played a French defense, and Grischuk played the Winnower variation, which is what I used to play when I was a teenager. If you looked at my games as a teenager where I had black against e4, at least half of them I had black in the Winnower. Then I gave up the French when I turned about 20 years old, 21. I was tired of getting checkmated. e5, c5. This is the way that I played it. In this position, Fischer used to play a3, but that never really caught on. e5 has been the main move for 75 years. c5, now a3, takes, knight e7. This is how I played black in the Winnower. Queen g4. Now, in the last 15 years, people started castling here with black. But before that, they played this other line, which I played as a kid, and Grischuk plays here, where you sacrifice your king side and you try to blow up the center. Takes on d4, takes on g7, rook g8 of course, queen h7, queen c7. And I had this position a few times as a kid, although my theoretical knowledge didn't go like past move 13 or 14. Luckily, my opponents didn't either. So, when I was a teenager, I was like 2,300. So I played this when I was a preteen also, when I was a class player. So most of my opponents didn't know 20 moves of theory like they do now. When I was a kid, kids weren't good at chess. So if you played somebody who was rated 17, 18, 1900, they didn't know 25 moves of theory like they do now. Now everybody's really good. Okay, knight e2. You can see black's threatening queen takes c3 check, winning the rook. Knight e2 is the main move. Knight c6. White plays f4. You can see the e5 pawn is incredibly attacked. Bishop d7. Black prepares to castle. Queen d3, getting the queen back in the game. Takes on c3. And this is like the end of my theoretical knowledge. I know white can take on c3 with either piece, or white can play h4 and start moving the h-pawn down the board. Cheparinov played knight takes c3. Now, if it was white's turn to move, white would play knight b5 attacking the queen, and then knight d6 check. So that explains Grischuk's a6. If you're ever confused, I try to explain to you why the players made certain moves so that you understand, why black would play a6 in such a position. Rook b1. Now the players are out of their preparation and they're playing chess on their own. Knight a5. Knight wants to go to c4. h4. Typical for white to play h5, h6, h7, and develop the rook on h3, and sometimes slide over to the c file. Knight f5. If white can play g4 successfully, then knight f5 isn't a good move, but black has a rook on g8. Now black is eyeing the g3 square for the knight or the rook. Rook h3, protecting the g3 square, so black can't come in there. Castles. So black's down a pawn, but white's king is in the center. White has two isolated pawns. White's bishop on c1 is blocked in by the f pawn. And black has a solid pawn structure. Pawns are all together. h5, knight c4. Boy, I always wondered why Grischuk was always in time trouble. And based on today's games, it's warranted. He's playing the sharpest openings, the most complicated, confusing, hard to understand. And so he takes a lot of time so he can figure out the niceties of the position. He's a very fighting player. He doesn't have these 10-move draws you see in the Berlin or Petrov. Plays really sharp chess. Rook b4. Don't really understand that move. I don't like it. Bishop c6. Yeah, I like that move. Bishop's good on c6. Knight e2. Typically, white, when they do play knight takes, plays knight e2, because the knight on e2 protects g3, so we can't come in here, and the knight can go to d4 later and trade off this strong knight on f5. Bishop b5. Now black is threatening knight takes e5 with a double attack on the queen. a4, queen c5, attacking the rook, queen c3, d4, attacking the queen, queen b3, knight a5, attacking the queen, and white takes on b5, sacrificing the exchange. Knight takes queen, knight takes rook. Black is up the exchange. I don't know why white sacrificed the exchange there. This looks really good for black. Let's go back. Yeah, it seems like he should just move his queen here. Something like queen b2 or queen b1. He has to protect his rook, so he can't run his queen over on the other side of the board. But he has to save his queen. Yeah, this exchange sacrifice looks very poor. Probably white was in time trouble too. Even though this lecture is about Grischuk and about Grischuk being in time trouble, you can imagine in a game like this that's super complicated that both sides are in time trouble. Knight g1, setting up for the next game, threatening rook h1. No, but actually, this lets the bishop get out, and it lets the knight go to f3 and then g5, where it's better than on e2. Rook g3, finally black can penetrate the g-file. Bishop a3, threatening the knight. Notice the rook is defending the bishop via x-ray. If you take the bishop, then the rook takes. That's the longest x-ray I've ever seen in a tactic in chess. That's number one. 7 moves and 7 squares away. Black played d3. Black wants to take on c2 and promote to a queen. So if white takes, black can take on c2 and then play rook d1 check and make a queen. White trades rooks, rook takes rook, knight takes rook, takes on d3, knight takes a4. Now black has 2 passed pawns on the queen side. Knight e2, takes the h5 pawn. That was the strong pawn. And in this position, black's up the exchange for no pawns, so black should have no trouble winning, except Grischuk is in terrible time trouble, so sometimes when you're completely winning and you're in time trouble, you mess up. g4, rook takes pawn, threatening the bishop, and now the knight can go to g3 if white saves his bishop. So white took the knight and got a passed h-pawn. h6. If I was in time trouble, I might not allow this h-pawn to be so threatening, but Grischuk saw that it wasn't that threatening because these 3 pieces can't help the h-pawn. So Grischuk plays rook check and rook to d1, and the rook can come down to the d8 square. And I want to show you a funny tactic. If black plays rook d3 with the same idea, rook d8, same as rook check and rook d1, what's the difference? It's possible Grischuk didn't like knight c3, attacking the rook, and if you take the knight, now your rook can't get back and stop my pawn. And your rook is hanging and your knight is hanging. So Grischuk very accurately in time trouble checks first and then plays rook d1. Now knight c3 doesn't do anything, I just take it. So h7, rook d8, knight d4, knight c5, stopping bishop d3, which would protect the h-pawn. Black moves his king over to the king side. Now black starts pushing the queenside pawns. White's hoping against hope. Black takes the knight and allows queen, which obviously isn't going to happen. Rook h8, check, king f8. And now white's run out of ideas. Black's going to push the 2 pawns on the queen side. And black can go win the h-pawn at his leisure. H-pawn isn't dangerous anymore. And Grischuk made the time control, so he's not in time trouble anymore. He gets extra time at move 40. Typically, a lot of chess games that have a time control of like 40 moves in 90 minutes, and then like they add another 30 minutes, and maybe there's a 30-second increment. A lot of games like that, the game ends after move 40 when the people are out of time trouble. So between moves 41 and 46, you see a lot of games end because the person who was winning, they made the time control and they get extra time, and the other side decides to give up. And here, if Grischuk was in terrible time trouble, then white wouldn't resign. But since black got extra time on his clock after being in time trouble for so long, now black has lots of time and there's no reason to play anymore. Anyway, I don't recommend getting in time trouble as much as Grischuk, but he seems like he's good at it, and he plays good tactics even when he's in time trouble. He sees what has to be done, and that's why he's been one of the top, I would say, 30 players in the world for the last 20 years. And I heard he's not a bad poker player, but I'm probably better at chess. I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold. I want to thank our sponsor again, Mike Puddinhead. If you want to sponsor a lecture, go in the description and find Karen's details, my wife, and she'll give you the information on how to sponsor a lecture. Again, Mike Puddinhead, thanks for sponsoring. This has been Grischuk in Early Time Trouble. I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time with more weekly videos. Bye, everybody.